Hello everyone, this is Shannon Flummerfelt from Flip Schools. Welcome to the Understanding Instruction series. This video is for Central Office administrators. It'll provide a brief discussion on the importance of identifying stakeholders of instruction. As a Central Office administrator, you deal with so many different constituents in the work that you do, and it's important to make sure that there's a clear understanding about who the stakeholders are for any given process. In the case of this video, we're going to focus on instructional processes, and particularly when you start using the flip technology to really understand what's happening from the perspective of the stakeholder. So what we're driving for here in this particular video is just a reminder or a brief understanding or introduction to the idea that there are stakeholders in education. Those stakeholders need to be overtly identified, and also those stakeholders need to be understood in terms of what they would see as value added in a process. And so what we start to do is we say, well, first of all, who are stakeholders or what are stakeholders? And they end up being the key people in our districts, in our communities, in our state and federal governments, for instance, who receive or participate in instructional processes. So, of course, the ultimate stakeholder for us in education are our students. Faculty, obviously, are key stakeholders, administrators, parents, the government, the Michigan or the Department of Education in any state, such as in Michigan or Virginia, the federal Department of Education would all be considered stakeholders as well. So we need to sort this out because we need to be able to understand who's the stakeholder of the process that we're looking at and what's really of value to them. It's easy to get this confused and, as we're trying to serve all stakeholders all the time. So what happens is a lot of times central office administrators will create what's called a credo of stakeholders, where for a given process, such as with an instructional process, you actually set these people in order. Who are we serving first, second, and third? And actually, this is a process that's also done by many of the Fortune 500 companies and so on, because a lot of times the interests of stakeholders are in conflict. So there has to be a clear credo or a priority list for given processes. In this case, we're talking about instructional processes. So let's just say that you might have a credo like this, where students would be the first stakeholder that you serve in instruction, parents would be second, and faculty would be third. You may have something that looks totally different in your school district. What's important about this, though, is to be able to not only say what you want the credo to look like in terms of stakeholders, but to actually understand what the credo really is in terms of who the stakeholders are. So, for instance, of course, we do want to serve our students as stakeholders of instructional processes. They're the number one. But, many times we may not be serving them as number one. We may be complying with a state government, for instance. That may end up being the key stakeholder in instruction. Or perhaps we may be placing faculty as the key stakeholders of instruction. So it's important to actually understand this not only in theory but in practice, what's actually occurring in the current state in your district, so that you can address that and create a better future state. So let's just take, for instance, students as stakeholders. What does this mean? If a student is a stakeholder of instruction, what you'd want to ask is, what is value added for a student to do in the process of instruction? So, just imagine that you're walking in the shoes of a student in, your preschool program or in your elementary, middle school, or high school program. What is value added for a primary student? What's value added for a secondary student in the process of instruction? So, one of the things we do know is that a lot of students think that school is really boring. So we know that we're not always delivering a value-added process of instruction for students. And we need to figure out, what do we need to do so that students aren't bored, so that instead they are engaged, so that instead they are working and learning and achieving. And to walk in the shoes of that student throughout, the school day, or just a part of the day, or through a class, if you can imagine doing that and seeing it the way the student does, that's really what this involves. So, same thing could be true for parents. If we have parents identified as a stakeholder of instruction, then we might need to say here, first of all, where are parents in the credo? If they're the second stakeholder of instruction, then we really need to make sure we understand what's value added for a parent to do in the process of instruction. What does that look like from the perspective of a parent? If they're receiving newsletters and websites, and come in for open houses and can volunteer in the attendance office, or whatever they do, helping their student with homework at night, whatever they do as stakeholders in instruction, you need to begin to think about, what does this look like from their perspective, and what is actually value added. I don't know if you've ever been a parent of a child who's in school, and then also been an administrator of a school system at the same time. You can see that a lot of things that happen from an administrative point of view are not value added for parents. And it's good to be able to understand that, because it gives us a chance to drive improvement in that particular area. So, for instance, as you look at the flipped technologies, and you're looking at students and you're looking at parents as stakeholders of instruction, if you're choosing to move to a flipped technology in your school district, or just beginning to pilot it, these are questions that you need to ask. Does the flipping create a value add for students? Does it create a value add for parents in the process of instruction? And also, of course, faculty are some more stakeholders of instruction. You're going to want to, really make sure as a central office administrator that you understand what is value added for faculty to do in the process of instruction. This is a really interesting question, because actually, with the flipped technology, we're kind of really getting at this a lot, especially when faculty can create or access screencast content so that they're not just delivering the instruction during the class time. Fundamentally, what we're saying there is it's a better value add for faculty to be able to work with students individually, give them more learning activities, more project-based learning in class time, and the delivery of content can be handled through the flipped technology and accessed 24/7 outside of class. So again, when we start to look at who our stakeholders are, understand what those experiences are like for them in the process of instruction, and making sure that what's being done is really a value-added move, that's very, very important. Well, if you listen to this video, this is one in a series of 5, and we're going to actually move towards a tool called a value stream map. So if you're interested in learning more about value add and stakeholders and the process of instruction, you might want to listen to some of the other videos. Hey, listen, thanks for listening to this one. The Flip Institute website also gives you more information at theflipinstitute.com. Take care, everyone.